Hey folks, welcome to the Marketing Unleashed show. I'm Jeff C. of Manly Pinterest Tips, and this is going to be a super exciting show. Somebody who I've been wanting to get on this show for a long time is here with us today. So Tina is so excited to have. I'm so excited to have you here, Elisa. Maybe, but we want to let you guys know. Make sure to, as we're going along today, to ask your questions. We want to make this as interactive as possible, and also we want to, if we're talking all about, how to make great looking pins. We're going to talk about some video pins, but if you know of somebody who's like, oh, this is right up their alley, they need to hear about this, don't be afraid to mention them down below so they are notified about this broadcast, because we would love, the more the merrier, as Elisa always says. Elisa, how are you doing today? You look a little, like, I don't know. You're excited to be here.
I'm always excited to be here, and I'm excited to be here with you, Jeff, and you, Tina. Tina, I don't know if you know this, but Tina and I have been friends since approximately 1888.
Oh, yeah.
Is that right, Tina? That's about the year where we met?
Yeah, I mean, I might have said 1887, but,
Yeah. Yeah, we knew each other when we both lived in Maine. Tina is still sticking it out up there in Maine and even liking it. So
Rona says hello. She's always here.
Rona,
thank you so much for coming every time. I always mispronounce your name every single time.
You say it wrong every time.
Every time, but that's part of my loving charm that I have. So many people are here. Thank you, guys. Kathy for coming up. I see my friend Sally, how she's actually called somebody in. That is what we want to see.
Thank you, Sally. You're
Sally,
always
thank
here.
you for messaging me, by the way. Sally was just featured on a podcast about Pinterest, and she's a jeweler. She creates jewelry, and she was just featured on there. And so she messaged me. I thought, congratulations. That is awesome that you were interviewed. I can't wait to hear that episode. So, and we've got Samantha here from London. Thank you guys for stopping in. Exciting show. Like I said, I'm excited to have Tina here with us. So, yeah, I read it down below. That lady who's in the middle. No, Tina, she's really incredible. I kind of know her through Elisa, and I get all the stuff, kind of back channel. But why don't you give us the pro introduction, Elisa, of Tina? Why don't you tell it all about her?
Yeah, so Tina is currently, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, but the creative director at Simple Pin Media. But Tina has been working with Pinterest marketing for as long as I have. So we started of 120 years. So we started together on that same client that I always talk about. You call him the smoothie guy, but he's a nutritional counselor, compounding pharmacist. We worked on that account together. So we go way back, but Tina, she would always kind of take, I would say, would you please make something like this? And then she would make something 100 times better. And
she's an incredible designer.
She's still doing that. So we're excited to pick her brain today.
Yeah.
This is the only way we can. Yeah. I mean, picking someone else's brain is the reason why you have a show like this, right? Because otherwise you're going to pay them $1 million.
Right.
Oh,
and this is funny. Tina says that she needs to be in the middle to keep you two in check. That is true.
I do not know.
We start fighting.
Hey, I think this guy understands me right there. He knows what I'm dealing with on this show.
Yeah, well, let's not get started on bacon, because I know you guys are going to gang up.
Oh, yeah, the bacon board. I'm on Tina's bacon board. So you guys have known each other since Pinterest was on corkboards, when it was actually Pinterest, when it was real pins back in the day. Yeah.
That's right.
So we had a big show last week, so I want to make sure you guys, if you missed that show, that you go back and watch it or listen to it, because there is a very cool thing that is out now on beta at Tailwind. You can find more at bit.ly/FB Live-create. That's FB Live-create. So tell about a little, they need to go listen and watch the entire episode we did. But give a little blurb, Lisa, what this thing is that we are so excited about that Tailwind has put out there.
It's so cool. So if you go to that link, you're going to get to a webinar landing page and be like, what is this? Well, that's because our discussion last week was kind of built around a webinar that we just released about everything you need to know about Pinterest. And it really is. But it's the part you really want is at the top right that says request early access to Create. So what Create is an amazing new tool from Tailwind, which allows you to create gorgeous images for Pinterest really, really fast, customize them as much as you want to, and then build them right into your Tailwind workflow. So it is an amazing time saver. The design images, I mean, I'm going to just say it, even though I'm working on it, they're beautiful.
Yeah. The people making templates are pretty awesome.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, Jeff might know one of them. But the things that they're building in are so smart, like the image focus, things you probably won't even notice. You'll think, why does this look so good? The team is building those things in to make them look good, and they're building in new things all the time. It's amazing. Got to go check it out. So that is your link to request to join the beta group. So you can be one of the first to test it out. You definitely want to do that. It is so much fun, you guys.
Yeah. So go to bit.ly/FB Live-create. Sign up for it. It's cool. I have been loving playing with it. But without further ado, we've got to, Clarissa says this. She goes, Tina, we can't wait to hear all your design tips and tricks. So Tina, we want to know what you are excited about in Pinterest design. I mean, like, there's trends, there's all sorts of stuff, but you are like, that's what you do all the time, every day, all day is design. So what are you most excited about in Pinterest design? Is it a new feature? Is it new things going on in Pinterest? What excites you?
All of the things. No, but really, is that a good answer?
Yeah, it's a great answer.
Let's move on.
Let's move on. Question number 2. No, this is going to be the fastest live ever. No, I think if I had to choose one, I kind of sat with this for a while, and I think it would have been that you've probably both seen it too, that there's been kind of this shift, I think, in the last year or so towards these minimalist designs more in style, which I'm a huge fan of. I think that I feel about cluttered designs, Jeff, the way you feel about script fonts. So.
Right. And we all know that I do not like script fonts. Yeah.
So that's how I feel when it comes to cluttered designs. I always have like this like cringe feeling inside. So I think this minimalist focus is awesome because it goes really well with advertising guide that Pinterest released. What was it, like a month ago? It was really thick and awesome. And it kept using this saying in there that I loved about less interrupting and more inspiring. And I feel like that's what a minimalist approach, using white space, really letting the image speak for itself as opposed to cluttering it with all these different elements. I'm excited about that. And we're seeing good results. Like for Simple Pin clients, we're seeing great results when they're using this approach. We're seeing great things happen. And I think Pinterest kind of wants us to move that way too, because in that advertising guide, a lot of the examples that they gave in there were this minimalist approach, right? So I love that. I think it's smart.
So let's kind of break down what you mean by minimalist approach, especially for people who are listening on the podcast. So let's say, and I know you at Simple Pin Media, you guys do a lot with bloggers. And so a lot of times bloggers don't have like, I'm selling, this, I'm selling iPhone, earpods or something like that. So I can show a picture of the product really minimalized for a product pin. But what about for somebody who's like a blog post? Are you saying not to use any text on it? Or when you say minimalist, what do you really, really mean?
Yeah, good question. So, no, I'd obviously use text in that situation, right? Because especially with the visual search and when it comes to when it's not an actual product, like you said, Pinterest, the visual search can't even catalog it correctly with a copy. So we need that. But I think kind of a less is more approach, like going back to it and saying, can I trim this in any way? How can I get my message, pretty straightforward? Do I need these extra design elements? Could I just use a simple text overlay? Can I go for a more streamlined approach? I think in those ways, by not cluttering it, by keeping branding minimal, fonts, Pinterest is saying that, and just, letting the visual speak for itself. I think that it can still, even without custom photography or like you're saying, without having the flexibility in those situations, I think you can still just keep the design streamlined.
Gotcha. So do you have any, sorry, I'm going to interrupt you there, Lisa. Yeah, okay, do you have any like companies that you really think do this really well? Like, I think of like IKEA, some of their catalog images and stuff like that. I mean, because I love to give people examples or like places to go to look when you say minimalist design, what you kind of mean by that.
Yeah, so actually that's great. I wish I had thought about that ahead of time, but I feel like a lot of the lifestyle bloggers are killing it. But as far as companies, I feel like I actually am kind of impressed with what Walmart and Target is doing at times. they might just have, I wish I had an example, but they like, I especially see it in promoted pins when they're doing it because, they might just have 2 photos of the product, and then text is like this tiny little box on the bottom with just something that's like powerful about the actual product. And it lets the mind do the rest of how it could create or solve a problem for them. So I think that they're both doing a really good job. I wish I could think of something, but even Target, I've seen some for like all outfits, and it's just letting the product speak for itself. And then it's just down here, like, design your fall wardrobe.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Really streamlined.
So this is a great point by Marion. She goes, my design rule, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Yes, we need to make that on a t-shirt, Marion, because that is so true. Yes. And do it in a Scripty font. But so Irene goes, I always thought script fonts were a good visual. Who knew? Okay, let me preface why I say that. If you're just joining us, and I've talked a lot about why I don't like script fonts, is one, and I think Tina will agree with me, is that some things look really great when you're designing it on Photoshop, but when you get to your mobile phone, it's hard to read. And the other thing is, Scripty fonts are hard to read by Pinterest. They have that super cool algorithm that can actually read text on your pins. And we even show that, I think it was on the engineering blog, where they were trying to read it and they couldn't read some of those Scripty fonts. So that is why I am poo-poo on but I was even poo-poo on it before.
You were. You always.
Before the engineering blog said, I just didn't like it.
Yeah, but Tina does not agree with you. Oh,
you don't agree with me?
No.
You don't agree? Why not?
Scripty fonts are beautiful. Tina, didn't we come up with a pretty good compromise on this?
Do you see this? It's like
I know. I know. But Tina, believe we had this conversation. I don't know, maybe a year ago when we talked about
Was I in on it or
no
not?
way.
We were talking about you behind your back, actually, but
Probably.
But Scripty fonts can look beautiful. Right?
I'm going to bring up comments because I can. Cursive fonts, nobody can read anymore. Very true.
Oh, probably no one can write it anymore. But they can look really pretty. But remember the compromise we came up with?
Yeah, so here's my thing. I feel like that fonts have a psychological element to them. I think some look more relatable, some look more cold. And I think whether or not when we look at a font, we actually process that without realizing it to a degree. I think that sometimes script fonts can look relatable, like they can feel real to people. So I think they can have a place in there. I know, look at space. Again, it's a woman in Pinterest, there's a lot of women. So
there are a lot of women on there.
You need to create for your audience, Jeff.
I do, but I don't use I don't use Scripty fonts.
But okay, so the suggestion I give, and I don't know, maybe Tina, I don't know if you like this one or not, but don't use it for your keywords.
That's what I do too. Use it for non-important. Like if it's like how to do something, I'll put the script font that they have for their branding to keep it there, how to, and then put the keywords,
I just think it's real. I just think it's so important for Pinterest to be able to read it. And even how to me, would be a good signal for Pinterest because how to is so important on Pinterest.
Okay, but you got to trade off, right? Or you can use.
Do you want it for search or to look nice? That's the thing.
Both. So you can put it in your title, you can put it in your description, you can put it in your board, right? There are lots of places you can put it. I think it's worth a test.
Okay, we'll put a pin in that. Haha.
Yes, let's do that.
Because we're going to talk a little bit about later about some of the new trends and looking maybe not as polished, and we'll talk about that. But I want to bring up this question from Jay Carlos, and she or he goes, I don't know, I can't tell because there's no avatar. Would using only a keyword as part of the minimalist approach be penalized, or is it better to use a hook and keyword or a curiosity and keyword?
Oh, like only using the keyword itself?
Yeah, like, just bam. That's what I thought of it. What do you think?
If that's what you mean, if that's what you mean by that, no, I wouldn't do that.
So you wouldn't do, like, let's say it's a real pretty, you have a real pretty image and it says fall wedding, and you wouldn't just use fall weddings or, okay. I just wanted to ask the question because I thought it was interesting. So, okay. So I'm done with my section about.
Are you done?
Scripty fonts.
Are you sure?
Yeah, you can go. I'll still disagree with you.
Okay. So
you two together, I just knew.
I know we are trouble. We've always been known for that. I asked him before the show, can he handle us? I don't know if he can handle us.
Probably not. Probably not. All right. Okay, Tina, you look at a lot of images.
Yes.
Give me some really easy, like maybe you're And I know I'll get my images to a point where it's like, I like it, but I don't love it. So what are some easy upgrades people could make to their designs, especially for Pinterest, that you would suggest?
Yeah. So bear with me for a second, because I know it's going to sound like I'm not answering your question, but I will, I promise.
Okay.
So I feel like going back to what Jeff had just said to his point a few minutes ago about optimizing for mobile, I feel like that is like the single biggest upgrade that people can do for their images. If they can filter everything that they do to an image through, am I optimizing for mobile? I feel like the changes come naturally. And that's like when I meet with clients, the number one thing, like we'll have them submit 5 links or something so I can evaluate their pins. And the number one that I'm seeing across the board is that people are not creating with mobile in mind. And it's kind of this like aha moment when they realize it. I'll make them pick out their mobile phone and we'll look at it together. And then I'll be like, can you read that? And they're like, oh, I can't. So
Tina, wait, before you move on though, what are you seeing when you're looking on the phone that isn't working? Is it font size? Is it contrast? Like, what is it?
It's all of those things. You know, I feel like when we're creating on a screen like the size of the one behind me and the images are rendering at double, triple the size, we feel really good about it. But we're not always going and checking. I like to actually upload them to a secret board and test them sometimes to make sure I can see all of those elements first. And so I think that if you can do that, then you're going to spot those red flag issues, right? You're going to spot if your fonts are too small to read. You're going to spot if those Scripty fonts are an issue.
Delete them.
Delete them right off. Just get rid of them.
Yeah.
CTAs sometimes, I see that people are using them, which is really smart, but they're under the spot where the visual search icon is or somewhere else. They're not spotting those things. So I think that if we're really thinking about mobile and how it's rendering on mobile, then the clicks will go up, the design will go up. It's like this magic moment where everything fixes itself.
So Yvonne says this, she goes, I find many pins aren't optimized for mobile, and that is very true. So Tina, would you say like, if that is you, maybe that's kind of some of the low hanging fruit that you could go back to some of those images and recreate them and make them, just go and say, okay, I'm going to leave this up there. I'm not going to delete because both Elise and I don't like deleting things. And then creating some new ones that are really, really optimized, like you were saying, minimalist design, really clear to read on mobile. Would that be kind of some of the low-hanging fruit that you would kind of advise people to do?
Absolutely, right? Because then it's like it's fast and it's efficient. We already have 90% of it done. We're just tweaking it to make it better, and then it's a fresh image. So absolutely, yeah.
Very cool.
Okay, so you kind of answered a couple questions in one, which is cool, but I want to get a design tip. Like, okay, yeah, I totally get, yes, you want to optimize for mobile, but like what visually, like to make it a little more visually appealing, like, are there any little tricks that you use?
I think it's so hard. I wish I
could,
because it totally changes on each image, right? So what I'll use to optimize something is going to change. I think my favorite thing right now, as we talked about earlier, is like trying to utilize white space within an image, but that doesn't always work, and I get that. I am a big fan right now, personally, of just using a simple text overlay without complicating it, like just kind of floating it on the top or the bottom of the image and not complicating it. Super easy, but I feel like it serves its purpose, it serves it well, and it doesn't really clutter the image. So I'm a big fan of that, honestly. Not overthinking it. It works. Yeah.
Makes sense.
So this is funny. Leah asked this, goes, how many people just brought up their Pinterest feed on their phones to check if they could actually read them? So yeah, you're supposed to be paying attention, Lisa. You should raise your hand. So you're supposed to be listening to our guest. So I thought that was really, what are some other like big mistakes that you see people see other than that?
Oh man, I feel like I could write a book. There's been some train wrecks that have come through.
Right. But funny you say that. Some of my earlier pins, they still perform and they were horrible. So it's funny. We always say to test because sometimes for some reason people like crappy images. And they can't click.
It's like reality TV. They can't help but click, right?
Right.
It's like, oh, this looks really bad. I need to know what's going on behind this.
So you mentioned this, so why don't you make it a little bit clearer? Because Paulette says, I just realized that my text is hidden by the pin stat. So talk about that a little bit for people who may like, what is she talking about? Maybe I'm doing it too. So thanks for your honesty, Paulette, for that.
Well, I wonder if the pin stats I wonder, I'm trying to think where it is. I think that's only on her end, so she might be okay, right? Because she's
Right.
that's her account. So don't worry, Paulette, you're probably okay. But there are elements when we have photos that are up, like the little search icon, the save button, right? There's areas on a pin where if we're utilizing those as important spaces for text or something, or a CTA or a logo or what have you, then we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot because they can't see it on mobile or even on desktop for that matter.
Yeah.
You avoid the corners and
Yeah.
you're usually okay.
Yeah.
So that brings up another question. This is from Karen. She asked this. She goes, where is the absolute best place to put text? That's a good question.
So did you notice that in that advertising guide that they actually mentioned that products and logos should be on the upper half of the image? I was interested in that.
Yeah.
It said, I think it even used the word always. I'm a big fan of language. Like when people speak in absolutes, it catches my attention.
Especially when Pinterest does, because they so often,
They kind of hedge their bets a little bit.
I mean, there are so many variations, but if they say always or don't or never, it's like, you should probably listen.
I agree. And I went back to my team after that and they were like, should we recreate everything? And I said, no. But from moving forward, let's think about switching up designs to be able to do that, right? Because it makes sense. I just don't feel like, why would we not? Sometimes people fight things like that, like, well, we don't really have to. Well, Pinterest is telling you to do it.
Yeah, when they say to do that, it's kind of like, okay.
I mean, you can always test because there are always outlying cases, right? But that's a rule that you can break. But you got to know the rules first, right?
You do have to break it. But I do like text. I think personally, I think we're going to talk later on the agenda. Part of it was about composition. And I think that hierarchy on an image is important. And I think we tend to read right from certain angles. We tend to focus on the top. So I feel like I don't want to put a rule on it because I feel like it's more important to design around the image that you have, not to sacrifice that in the moment. But I feel like if I have the space for it, I'm naturally inclined to put my copy on the top. But
very cool. Yeah. So Lee asked this question, and where can we get a copy of this advertising guide that we have cryptically talked about? Is it hidden somewhere in the business account? Where do you find the advertising guide? Do you guys know off the top of your head?
I have it on my desktop right here. I can share the link after.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'll drop it in the comments, and if you're listening on the podcast, go to either Facebook or LinkedIn, and it will be, or on YouTube, it'll be there in the comments as well. So Mama Jo, so she shows up every week almost over on YouTube. She goes, it's interesting though that my pins do better with the text up top. So one, that's really cool that you shared that, and two, that you are actually testing that and it's not, you're just not throwing stuff up there, but you're actually kind of diving in and seeing what is actually working. So great job, Mama Jo. So very, very cool. So this next question, I think we have an example for, right, Elisa? If we're going by the document, or we threw that out of the window, I don't know. But
no, we're going by that.
So this is a great question because a lot of people struggle with this, especially if you're a solopreneur or a small business, kind of by yourself. Like a lot of people struggle with custom photography. So is that really a requirement for good design?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I kind of sat with this too when I saw it on the agenda. You're welcome, Lisa. Pat on the back.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't really want to write an official rule around it because, again, I feel like when we box ourselves in too much creatively, then we can actually sacrifice the overall design or our overall approach to design. But I will tell you that I've seen both custom photography and stock photos work well, but given the chance, I will always choose custom photography if I have the availability to use it. And for 3 different reasons. I have 3 reasons. Do you want them?
Yeah, give them to us.
All of them, yeah.
Cool. So I think number 1, it separates us from the crowd, right? There's not that risk that everybody in your niche is using the exact same photo, which happens. So that's number 1. I also feel like going back to the psychology of an image, I feel like especially if it's a product and you have custom photography there, I feel like it levels up your credibility. I just feel like it looks so much more professional, so it's worth it. Even food writers, food bloggers, if they're using a stock photo of a recipe, or you can tell that it was made in their kitchen, which one am I going to click on? I'm gonna go with something that's custom. That's just natural for me. The other thing is that I really believe that it keeps the algorithm happy. Like we just talked about the fact that within certain niches, we can see the same, especially bloggers use the same photo again and again and again. And if we're getting tired of it and we don't feel like it looks fresh, I often ask myself, does the algorithm view it as fresh anymore? You know, those are questions to ask. So you avoid that with custom photography. And then the last piece is that I really feel that the best pins I have ever seen in my life started at the photo shoot level, because it gives you more creative freedom when you go to edit. Like, let's say you want this minimalist approach. Well, when you're shooting, you're going to back it up and shoot with more white space, right? But if you're not doing that, and if you don't have that luxury later on, well, then now you're forced into using text overlays. So I feel like it gives so much more creative freedom, and it's awesome if you have it, but I would not say that they're going to fail if you don't have it.
That's a good point. So let's show this image that we're one of them that we're talking about for photography. Is that the one we have? Are you going to share it?
There is a link with a whole bunch of them. So do you want me to share, or are you sharing, Tina? Do
you want me to hop in to make it quicker for you?
Well, yeah, only because I don't know what you want to show.
Okay.
Yeah. So because I think a lot of people struggle, and I even say, like, everybody wants to know where you get free stock images from. I mean, when we do talks, I know, Elisa, that's one of the things we get asked a lot. And there are some spots that are great, but the problem is everybody uses those because they're free. So even if you're going to use stock photography, I say at least go to the places where you have to pay like a royalty-free photography and buy from like Deposit Photos or Adobe Stock or something like that. Even though you're paying for them, that just makes the less people using that same image. And so I've used those on pins for a long time, and it's hard to find other people using it because it's so people don't like to pay. They would rather use free, but you get a lot of benefit if you do pay. And so I always recommend that to people, is to use that. So do you have some? Okay, here they are. I'm going to pull them up right now, and let's make sure we describe these for our podcast listeners. So Elisa, what are we looking? Why is this so great?
This is Tina's example.
Okay, Tina, kind of explain this pin and why. I think it's kind of minimalist, but why do you like it? And so, like, explain it to somebody who can't see.
Yeah. So what I love about this, I feel like I'm describing like alt text here.
No, it's good.
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Okay. So what I love about this is on the top, there's an image. It's a custom photography. These are portable surfaces. So bloggers would use them to shoot their on things like that. Super hot right now, right? Because you can create a studio like in your house. But what I love about this is that this is custom photography. She's holding the surface, but then what we were able to do is in the bottom left-hand corner, we have a photo of this surface in action so that somebody can see the product on the top and say, okay, this is lightweight. Like, I feel like we're telling the story through the photo. It's small, it's lightweight, it's easy. And then on the bottom, we're saying, and this is what it looks like when you.
This is what you can do with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really pretty.
So I think what I love about this is that, again, it goes back to the less interrupting, more inspiring. So we're able in that case to just write the keywords, portable surfaces, pro level photos, and we're letting the photos tell the story of what the product is.
Yeah.
Oh, I
want to point out something else that you've done that I'm a big fan of right now too. And that is all caps for that kind of subtitle that's describing the little lifestyle photo, and then all lowercase for portable surfaces, pro level photos. And something about that looks very modern to me right now. I'm a big fan too.
And there's no Scripty font. So the other thing, when I see this, you know what so let's talk about taking it, like doing something cool with it. I think this would be a really cool video pin too, because you've already got the design. So I would swap out those two images and make the static of the lady holding the actual background, and then that little one there where she's showing it set up and all this stuff. If she had that like on a photo shoot, because if you're doing a photo shoot, you probably have a DSLR, and you can hit record and like showing it being set up and make that the big image for a video pin.
Yes.
And so this could be easily transformed into a video pin with very minimal effort. I really like this.
I agree. And there's a few more for that company, but for the sake of time, I'm going to hop over to a few other ones just to show what we've been doing. So this one, we have this particular client. She's very, very high-end makeup. And we have found that testimonials are doing wonders for her because she's known enough within the industry. She's been featured by Martha Stewart, Harper's Bazaar, all these Goop, she's out there. So people are familiar with it. So we don't really have to sell the product anymore. We're just selling solutions at this point. And so in this case, I mean, the product photography, again, gave us the flexibility of working with the white space.
Yeah, that looks great.
But I do have a little script font down there for that.
That doesn't, but see, that doesn't bother me because it's a branded thing.
Whoa.
You can't read it. No, you can't read it at all. I can't read it on my small little screen, but I get it. It's the brand.
Yeah. So that's another example. And then I wanted to show an example too, when you just have like smaller products to be able to work with. Like we just actually took the layer for this particular client, of the actual product. And this, I think we can just remember this image, like keep it in your mind. Because when we talk later on about how much text on image, I feel like this is a good example of a case where it really varies from image to image. Because in this case, I went with more text, but I felt it was appropriate because if I had just done the Order a Jungle tagline, then I'm not separating it from the competition, right? I'm not telling them this is gardening, pet friendly. Like that was necessary in this case. But I still feel like it kind of has a minimalist feel, even though half of it is text. So it really, it just changes, right?
Well, you made it a little bit longer than your typical 2 by 3. So it has enough white space in between too.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel crowded.
And the other thing is, when we were talking about isolating the image, so for people who are listening or who aren't like design goddesses like Tina, they also call it a knockout, where they have the image is the picture of the plant in the box is like totally doesn't have a background.
Isolated.
It's just isolated image. And so I know a lot of people like who are like wanting to do their own images, they struggle with this, but now with like tools like Canva and easel, and even there's another remove background kind of a thing that you can use. It's a lot easier to do that if you want to do that with a product or something that you need to take the background out. And so I think if people start thinking about that and realize it's a lot easier than it used to be. Back in the day, you had to use Photoshop and drag the little marching ants around it and all this stuff. And so it's a lot easier now. And so I would start experimenting with some of that kind of stuff, knocking out some of your images and isolating it like this. So.
I agree. Hey, Elisa, I have a cool tip for you now. It came to me.
What?
Okay, so in working with the promoted pins department, I can tell you that adding a little arrow next to that shop now, the click-through rates are going through the roof. I don't know why an arrow makes a difference, but it makes a difference, and now we're utilizing it heavily.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle Price. She goes, couldn't remember, it's remove.bg. Yeah, it's really great. It's a great little app, website as well to remove backgrounds.
Cool.
So that was just worth the price of admission, folks. Did you hear what she said about adding an arrow increases your click-throughs? See, that's why we bring Tina on. She's going to have to be a regular on the show.
I know. I was thinking about it, actually.
You have to give her a raise or something.
I tried to pitch to Elisa that we need a ladies' night Prosecco and Pinterest, which I think would be super hot. I'm sure all the ladies here like, you know what? Just spam the comments to Jeff if you want that to happen.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you so much. Now, I take all back what I just said.
Do you want me to stop sharing now?
Are you done? Okay.
Oh, hey, I wanted to point something out, though.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, in Create, we're still working on stuff. It's still beta. It's still early. But guess what we have for design elements that you can add to any pin design you want? Arrows.
Oh,
That's the
very
first thing I
cool.
said. Can we please add some arrows? Yeah.
So, by the way, if you guys are wondering what in the heck is this thing that we speak of that you would like to get on the beta version of it, you can go to bit.ly/FB Live -create. Man, they make it so easy to do this. bit.ly/FB Live -create, and you can get on the list to be part of the beta program for for Tailwind Create. So some people have asked, what is the wait time to get on this? Do you know, Elisa, how long it will take? Be kind to our customer service, by the way. They're processing a lot of these from our last show. So
you know who's processing them?
You?
Me. Yeah. So
and do not be nice to whoever is behind the email. Harass her as much as possible.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Appreciate that. So we did let in a bunch Tuesday. We're letting a bunch more in today, I think. So they're kind of going out in waves. So it's, it could be next week. It could be 2
Yeah.
weeks, but you definitely want to get in because it's really cool. And then when you're in beta, and of course, anytime, we always want to hear like, how can we make anything better for you? But especially in beta, we are all ears, and we have a big team working on making it very cool. It changes every day. So the demo that I showed last Thursday is already out of date. There's already a lot more cool stuff in there that I don't know how they do it. It's very cool.
Yeah. So go to this, sign up, bit.ly/FB live-create, and get on the list.
Yeah.
All right, there we
Get
go.
on the list. Thank you. Okay, Tina.
Yeah.
What if I have no eye for design? Like, what am I supposed to do?
Give up.
Okay.
And thank you for the encouragement.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. You're never coming back. No, I would, I think I wouldn't force it. That's my thing, if that's a nicer way to say it, right? Like, we can't be good at all the things. So I think there's no shame in that. If you're really running up against a wall and images are taking you forever and you're frustrated and you're not happy with them every single time, I think it's okay to say, I'm going to hire this out, whatever that looks like. And I think there are people listening, right, who are like, well, I don't have the budget for that. But I really feel like there's different steps and different levels, right? We're talking about what Tailwind's offering right now with Create. Simple Pin offers templates. You guys offer templates. Canva has templates, right? So if you're feeling overwhelmed, buy templates, use free templates. That's going to at least set you up for success. I think the next level up is to hire out image creation and to do it at that level. We have people that even come to Simple Pin that hire us just for like 3 months to get visual inspo. And then once they see what our team would do with it, they go and create it in-house. So I mean, I feel like, and then of course, next level up would be having a designer in-house and a media person. But I think that there's space for every business, that if you're really feeling uncomfortable with it, then to get the help that you need, whether it be templates or stuff like that.
Yeah. So I just want to pull up this comment. You guys talked about having your little girls' night. Jay Carlos says, Jeff, you and I can go have our whiskey and pin bro hangout. And we're so there, Jay Carlos. Thank you so much for that. So let's talk about, and I talk about this a little bit when I do speaking things, but a lot of people get frustrated and they don't want to try it because they think it's too hard. So talk about composition, like some simple rule. You talked about minimalist design. That has a lot to do with composition, but what are some things that, like, when you first sit down to start designing a pin, what are you looking for when you're starting to put a pin together? Because that's what we're talking about in composition. Do you start, this is the first thing you start with an image and then you add the text, or do you put the text in there and then make the image fit? I mean, how do you compose your pins when you start putting it together?
I love that question too. That's really good. And I feel like in layman's terms, right, composition is all of our elements that we're using are coming together to create a cohesive design. So composition could be made up in pin design to the fonts that we're using, to the leading lines that we're using, the image that we're using. There's a lot of pieces that make us have that moment when we're looking in the feed that something is visually beautiful. And that's composition, even if we didn't know how to put a name to it. For me personally, I always start with an image first because I like to work around the image. Like we were saying before, I don't like to try to make an image fit. I make things work around the image or the product that I'm working with. I think that simple things that people can work on with composition is like simple things like, do my fonts pair well together? That's part of composition. And if you haven't invested in your branding yet, like, let's just put a plug in there for Canva. I don't have an affiliate. I totally should, because I'm always talking about Canva, but it's all those blog articles that they have on font pairings and all those short videos that they have. Like, man, if you sat down and watched all of those short videos, you'd have like a free design.
They have a tool for font pairing that's pretty amazing.
And so I feel like that's one cool thing. The other thing we had talked about just a little bit later is like hierarchy, which is that big word, but really all it means is drawing attention to the correct things with your photos, with your pin designs. So we can do that by not keeping things cluttered. We can use that by trying to focus, feature like fonts. We can increase the weight on them, make them bolder, use colors to really draw the eye into keywords. Those are all ways that we can work with hierarchy, where we place the text, like we had talked about that too. And then one of the other things that's huge to me is like giving your image or your design room to breathe. And when I say that, it goes back a few years ago. I invested because I love photography. It's like my guilty pleasure.
Right.
And I took some workshops up in Maine. It was like it's very Maine style. They're like, leave your family, come with us for a week. You talk to no one, and we just work on photography. It's like what we do here. It was awesome. And so the instructor that I had at the time talking about composition was like, guys, you are focusing too much. Like give it room to breathe. You're boxing it in. Like, let us see the whole design. And so often with pins, I hear that when I look at things because people are so excited about making their fonts big enough to read, but they're increasing them so much that they're like maxed right out to the side of the design. And it's like, there's no space, right? It's just like everything's maxed. And it just doesn't have room to breathe. So we don't necessarily, in highlighting those things, like trying to get the font as big as possible, we can be sacrificing composition. So it's that balance of things. And that's one of my things, especially because when we upload images to some degree, like Elisa said earlier, stay away from the corners because they're a little rounded, right? They're cropped a little. And I've seen many times when people come in and their text on the top is like right to the edges and then it's rounded and you can't even read all of it. So composition in that way too, like give it room to breathe.
So we kind of touched on this a little bit, but it's a great question by Steve. He goes, do you have to have text or can it just be the image? So, you know, we talked about minimalistic design and we talked about, you know, fonts, Scripty fonts or not. But if it's a super powerful image, would you say that you need to have text or not?
Lisa's laughing. I can already I know she wants to know what I'm going to say to this. I think, again, it depends on the situation. So I think if you're a blogger and you just have a powerful bird's eye view of a desk, I think that needs text because nobody's going to know. Like if you're talking about SEO and you have a picture of a desk, nobody knows. I think that if you're in home decor and you're featuring like products or bathroom pulls or cool things like that, I think you can get away with it because people know what they're looking at and they're saving it because they then want to go purchase it. So I think it's a case by case situation.
And you could split test. Nope, sorry, we don't have time for you, Lisa.
Okay, I completely agree with Tina, and I know she is kind of thinking this in the back of her head. But if you have a product you want to sell, if you just put the product in the picture, like I'm thinking of this image that's in the webinar that you can go to. It's all yellow background, yellow coat, yellow everything. It's very striking. There's no text on it. But as a Pinterest user, what is that? Is that just a gorgeous art print or is that a coat that I can buy? So you don't necessarily have to have text, but you should have your subtle branding because that way I know, oh, this is at Nordstrom. Oh, I can buy this. It's not, oh, this is a poster I can order or just something pretty I want to save. So you've got to have a little bit of context.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I want to bring up this question. I think it's great from Karen because it's very specific. She goes, speaking of images, are vague images just as good as detailed ones? For example, if I'm making a pin about Walt Disney World, should the image be specifically about the thing I'm writing about or a general image of the parks? That's a good question. So this is a tough one, Karen, because Walt Disney World is instantly brandable. If you see, you know, even their logo, you know, with the Epcot Center and the ears of Mickey, you know what it is. And so this one, I would say you're going to have to test because of that reason, because most people know what Walt Disney World is. What do you guys say? Maybe I'm totally off base, but it's just, that's a tough one.
It is. And I think, is it specifically about the thing I'm writing about? So let's say the thing you're writing about is the best places to eat at Disney World. It's just because I think we need to have more of a specific example here. So I think the question then becomes, if I'm writing about the best places to eat at Disney World, can I just have a picture of Disney World or do I need to show the places where you can eat at Disney World?
But see, the problem is people may be going to Disney for the first time and they don't know that, you know, Docking Bay 7 is where you go eat in Galaxy's Edge.
Not that you've ever been.
Yeah, that was the last place I went before the lockdown. So I'm very, I dream about it every night. So, but see what I'm saying? I get your point, but they may not know that picture of the thing that they're selling there. And so having a super recognizable image of, you know, people walking up towards the castle, you know, that's Disney World, you know, or Disneyland. So, I mean, I don't know. It's a tough one.
I would do both.
I would too.
Yeah.
do both. Because it's not going to take a whole lot of time, right, to swap out another photo.
Right.
And you tweak the text a little bit to be more specific in that case, and then just see what happens. And then and you can use it moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Brian goes, well, is there a problem with using images or even a logo for companies like Disney? Logo, I would say yes. I think if you take pictures, your own pictures, like Tina was saying, of you in the park, you're okay. Because I know a lot of travel people do that as well. So one question is, how much text do we put on an image? Yeah. So that's a great one. You try to clear them as much as you can in, right? Is that what we're getting from you?
As much as possible, right up the edges, as big, and always script fonts.
Right, exactly.
Oh, gosh, I know. So, I mean, I wish I had a magic answer on this. I get asked this a lot in consults. And again, I'm going to design for the image. And so sometimes I've actually had someone ask me, what's the character limit on? No, I know. Talking about and I'm like, oh, you mean for a description? She said, no. What's the character limit on and I'm like, there's not one.
So that's a great question, Tina, because I know you get this because I've had to deal with it myself with clients. It's like, okay, here's my blog post title and it's gargantuan, 15 reasons why you should not use script fonts on Pinterest. That's their title and they want to make it a pin. So what do you take the creative license and make that shorter, or what do you do in situations like that?
I love that you asked this because it wasn't on the agenda and I kind of wanted to go there. I spend almost as much time on pin copy as I do on pin design. And I always ask the client first because some don't want us to touch their titles and I get it. Right. But if I can go to them and say, look, pin copy and pin SEO is very different than Google. And something that reads and ranks well on Google may sound very cold on Pinterest, where it's search and discovery, and we want to reach people on an emotional level. So given the chance, I will rewrite pin copy as much as possible. And in fact, good example, Kate's podcast, Natalie will write them for SEO for the title. I will write the pin copy for SEO, and you'll notice it changes frequently.
See, that's great because I always get the clients who don't want it changed. They like, I want it that way. That's the way I want. And you're like, oh, how am I going to fit that on?
And then you have to do what they want to do. But it's tough because I feel like sometimes it's just not it's not even always with what their audience, like how we write copy for Instagram is different than what we'll do on Facebook, right? So why wouldn't we do that for Pinterest? But some people are very like, no, just don't touch anything. And we work with that.
Gotcha. So Karen has another great question. She goes, when making pins for a brand new, I think she means new, not.
It's a nod to my cat.
It's a cat post. Yeah. A brand new post. Should I put only one pin up at a time or two different ones with different text images and see which one performs better? So I guess it's split testing, splitting up the split testing or doing them both at the same time when you put them out there. Elisa, you're smirking.
No, she is.
You have an answer.
And I know I'm going to agree with her, so it's okay. So
I don't know. You might not. So I think if the images are different enough that they will appear in different searches, you can put them out at the same time, right? So what you probably don't want is to create a blog post and have a bunch of images for that blog post that are all going to show up in the same search to the same audience and get annoying and repetitive. But if you have them that will show up in different searches, go ahead, put them out. And if you put them out together, that way you're getting a more accurate split test, right? Because we know Pinterest is ebb and flow, trends, whatever, usage changes so quickly that if you wait a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, then perhaps it's not a fair test. That's my thought. What do you think,
Tina? What do you think?
Agree with me?
I agree with that. I like that. I would say with that, I might have a limit of I wouldn't do 6, even if they're different all at once, because if people are under recent or something and they're still seeing it's like post after post after post about the same thing, that can come across spammy.
Good thing. Good question.
Good point.
Yeah. So I'm going to bring up Jay Carlos, one, because he mentioned whiskey, and two, he asked this great question a couple of times. Any insight on pin video designs best practices? Well, Tina did a 6-week video beta test at Simple Pin Media. So we want to know your findings. This should be really interesting. So what did you find, Tina, with your little secret test?
It was a fun secret test. I applaud you for letting me do it because a lot of people, I think Elisa kind of created this in me, but I have as much of a creative brain as I do a love for analytics. And I love to create intentionally. It's very important to me. Like, I feel like without analytics, how do we know what to create for our audience? It's important. And so when we talked about launching video, I went to Kate and I said, I want analytics first. I mean, this is what happens, right? If you go to the Pinterest specs page for static pins, it says 2 to 3, 1,000 by 1,500. It's just so streamlined. You go to video, it's like 1 to 1, 2 to 3.
Right. It's everywhere.
There's so many options. And when I was sitting there, I had like this moment where I'm like, great. So if clients are coming to me and they're paying good money and they want the best results, how do I know what works for them? I don't know. Unless I go and test it first. So I went to Kate and said, hey, can we reach out to clients? Can we ask them to be beta? They provide the video. We give them like 5 to 10 videos back. We test them with UTMs. We track it. And then we come up with it. So we decided to track the video pin sizes. So the length, the aspect ratios, that was a big thing we were testing. We were going to test audio versus no audio. And then we were also testing the video length, the length of the actual video. And then different designs and elements like adding a CTA. Like, did it work on video as well as it did on static pins? And we had 6 weeks where we tracked it. I wish it could have been longer, because all of us sitting here know that 6 weeks, you're just starting to get things categorized correctly, right? But it was the way it had to go. So these were the results. You ready for them?
Yeah, ready.
Okay. So I was shocked, and I'm even kind of ashamed to admit that square and the 9:16 ratios were the best. Square makes me squeamish. I didn't think that was going to work. And that's interesting to me.
Why?
I don't know. I still don't like it.
So now say it again, slower. Square and 9:16 ratio works the best?
Yeah. So the longer vertical that they give us.
Right.
Yeah, we're best. The 2 to 3, I have to say, was really close behind that 9:16 ratio.
Well, 9:16 is practically 2 to 3 ratio.
It is. It's just a little longer. It's just a little longer.
Well, it's also what stories are.
That is
like Instagram. So my question is on some of the stuff, do you think it ever, and I'm gonna throw everything out of whack probably, but
okay.
Do you think it depends on audience? Because I think some of the people are used to Instagram. Like, okay, for example, I think people who are used to watching Tasty Made and all those things, the recipe pins that are square on Instagram, don't have a problem watching those recipe pins, recipe kind of things, video pins over on Pinterest, because they're already trained to do that.
I agree.
Okay.
I absolutely agree. So, but they were still, the crazy thing is that I can tell you, like, within food industry, the longer ones that makes sense, right? We would expect that. But what's still interesting is that the numbers overall because we had TPTers, lifestyle bloggers, food writers, and product pins, and it was still kind of this way, which is interesting to me. Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yeah. And then for the length, there was like hands down, the sweet spot that we found for clicks and saves were 8 seconds to 40 seconds. That's where it happened.
That's what I've seen too. Yeah.
Yeah. And it makes sense. These like 15-minute videos, I'm like, go watch YouTube. This is not YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan. Yeah. Anyway, I'm getting off my soapbox. The sound. Now, Jeff, I feel like here we're going to talk about this, because I've heard you say, if you can add audio, why wouldn't you add audio? Right? Yeah.
I know you say it does. I read your report, and I think it's really interesting. But my thing is why not? Because I repurpose stuff, and if I'm going to do it, that'll make for Instagram story, then I think I want sound, and I might as well put it up there. It's not. I don't. So you think sound hurts it?
Okay, so I feel sound purely for entertainment purposes, the clicks went down. So when you're just like, you go to click on it and suddenly elevator music starts screaming at you. It didn't work.
Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. Yeah.
People like on their food recipes are adding music. Like, we need to be entertained while we're watching the recipe. And
I agree with you.
It didn't work. So I think when the audio plays a role to add context to it, hands down, great. But remove the music from.
Yeah. So I agree I will agree with that, because if it doesn't make sense and it's not part of the character of the video, then it doesn't need to be there.
Agreed. And that's what the information told us too. The amount of time they were watched, everything went down when that was there.
I wonder if that's why my TikTok videos did so badly.
Ooh, I sense a good test.
Because they have sound.
But Amy Licurdo's, she's killed it on stuff. We had her on a couple weeks ago, and she was taking TikTok's video, and it did have music, and they did really, really well.
I'm not Amy though.
Well, but hers she did a lot of hands and pan stuff, which does good on video anyway. Remember?
Yeah.
So
Sure.
Yeah.
It does. It's true. And then the last thing is just, it makes sense, right? It's intuitive. When there was a call to action, clicks went up.
Was the call to action throughout the entire video pin, or was it just at the end?
We tested different spots, and in my opinion, after looking at it, at the end is the best.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why it's important to be, I think, goes back to your short and length, because if you have a long video and you put it at the end, they're usually clicked off by the time you get to the call to action. So I think that those two things tie into each other.
Yeah.
So question, what would you use for a call to action?
It totally changed. Actually, do you want, I can show you our top converting video for you too. I can load that up.
We got about 5 minutes left with
Oh
this.
my goodness.
We need to do like a part 2. This is every time Elisa puts too many things in the document.
Hey, would you rather have too many or be like 20 minutes in and just twiddling your
Which
thumbs?
is never, ever
It's
happens.
never happens. Never going to happen.
All right, where am I? Okay. This is the high.
Okay.
No, we were going to talk about repurposing Square video too. Now we're not going to have time for that.
We'll have you back. We'll part 2. Yeah, part 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is, and it's not going to display. It's wonky because it's longer, but you'll get the idea. It's loading slowly. So here's the product. Actually, in this case, Jeff, we did a CTA at the beginning. I think and at the end.
I think
That's
I
smart.
like that idea.
I think testing that, I like that idea too, because of what they do the same thing, I believe, as Facebook does. They count a view as 3 seconds.
Yeah. So
So
what we did here, so you can see the product, right? What I love about this, now we're highlighting solutions, reduce anxiety. Yeah, we had great video to work with. Heal sleep disorders. What I love is then we slide in, a testimonial, right? So we're adding the power of that as a slide. And then they're still seeing this. I think we feature another, relieve troubled skin. And then at the end, we have the shop now. So what I loved about this video so much was that we were able to take things that are working really well for this client, which are the testimonials and these other pieces of, like, she's very unique in that her skincare products are like holistic about healing whole body type ailments. And we were able to feature those, which I think sets her apart on Pinterest from the skincare that is.
That's
so
good.
yeah.
Do you two know, because we know that on images that the algorithm reads text on images, do you guys know if they do the same on video? Like, would those come up? Have you guys heard anything?
I have a guess. I do not know, but my guess is that they read the cover photo.
Yeah, I don't think they would read the video, but I think that you're right with the cover photo.
I will tell you, I was really excited when I went and looked to pull these for the show, that when I clicked on this, we had the other 6 video pins that we created her, and it came up underneath as more like this, which I was happy about. So whatever it did over time, it was able to figure it out.
Yeah, are you still noticing that too? More like this takes a little while to really pan out. Yeah.
I think it's gathering all information throughout the Pinterest web.
It's so interesting.
It is. And I'm sure there'll be a nerdy Pinterest engineering blog article about it sometime, but we'll just have to wait. So this seems like a good point to stop everything with Tina and have her back for part 2, because I really do want to get in, and I think it's too much to cover in 3 minutes about repurposing Square videos and apps, because I'm a nerd for apps.
I know. So, Tina was like, I don't know which apps. I said, don't worry about it. Jeff knows all the apps in the whole world.
So we will make sure to do a part 2.
Yeah.
Yes, some people are saying a lot of questions weren't answered. Well, we have a ton. We can't get to all of them. We're sorry, but we will try to come back into the comments. Jay Carlos says he has actually tracked my video pins views for 6 weeks and noticed longer video clip did better than 10 seconds or 15 seconds. So that's good to know. Yeah. So what is your brand, Jay Carlos? FitLab. I'm assuming you are fitness videos just from FitLab, but that's really interesting. And I can see how, like, how to do an exercise or something like that would make sense that the longer videos did better. But that's what we were talking about. The audience does matter. That skincare stuff that Tina said that showed I thought was really good. Tina, you need to have like your own like Pinterest board where it's just inspiration that people can follow and that everybody would like to, because I think that your curated eye I would love to follow that board. So
we have a bacon board and
I know. Talk about, you could get hungry and inspired at the same time. So Tina, we want to give some time so people can find out more about you, where they can follow you at, all that kind of stuff, because you were chock full of information. And of course we want to have you back. And it wasn't that scary. I mean, really, Elisa, but I try to make it a little.
He has to make up for me.
Yeah. So, thank you guys so much. So Tina, everybody's asking, where's your Pinterest board? So, where can people find you?
Oh, yeah. So I'm on Pinterest at Socially Creative Designs. You can find me under there. It's like a little side project that I have, creating templates on the side. So you can find me for Pinterest over there. And of course, you can connect with me if you ever had any questions or things through the Simple Pin Instagram and stuff like that. Hit me up and tag me, and I will answer any of your image questions there too.
And we will make sure to drop all of Tina's stuff down in the comments here on Facebook and on YouTube. And do not forget to go sign up for the new Pinterest. The new Tailwind Create at bit.ly/FBLive-create. There's other stuff there too. Isn't there something else coming up?
There is a webinar there, the Everything You Need to Know About Pinterest webinar, which really is like a complete brain dump, but hopefully in an organized way. Everything you need to know to feel good about your Pinterest marketing, knowing that it's all up to date and recent. But still, you can also request early access to Create. Jeff, I want to give you the last word here because you usually give it to me. I want to know, what have you been working on?
Oh, yes, there's a lot of stuff that I've been working on. But first of all, when is this webinar coming up? When do you have a date?
Oh, it's out. It's done.
Oh, you can just sign up and watch
right
it
now.
anytime.
That landing page will get you there.
Very, very cool. So what I've been working on, I am actually putting a course together. So about video promoted pins. So that's going to be fun to do. So we will talk about that more later, I'm sure. But
awesome.
Because I want to, because this new Create tool, I think is going to be a game changer, folks. So make sure that you go to that URL on the screen and that we just mentioned at bit.ly/FBLive-create. And with that, we will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. Laura is in the audience. I see Karen, so much for all your great questions. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.
Bye.